Hey, work on the next review is underway, it's in writing, but I've wanted to recommend some channels in the meanwhile, and I've compiled a list. 18 or 19 channels that I enjoy that hopefully you will too. Mostly gaming review channels with a couple of outliers for film reviews, essays, and a Let's Play channel. I'm trying to give a broad range of different channels that focus on different genres of games and have different concerns. Some are more story focused, others gameplay. I've split it into 3 sections. Smaller channels, that's small relative to the final segment, not to me, otherwise this would be a much shorter list. Nepotism, where I shill people I know, and a channel I'm on. By the way, while I'm shameless, I have a Patreon, you can give me money. And lastly, big boys, people who need a shout out from me even less. Still kinda small compared to the rest of YouTube, but, you know, bigger. Let's begin.
One-on-one? Who wins?
Are we talking Ridley Scott or Cameron?
This is awful. Please fast
Let's go
travel.
with them.
No.
That's a
I want to know what they talk
I'm
about.
taking off my
We need
headphones.
to have that conversation later.
Oh, fast travel's unavailable.
No!
Yes. I'll fill you in, Judge.
No.
Since you have your headphones on.
Yeah, we need you to weigh in.
Technological level.
I've already recommended these guys once in one of my Patreon bonus videos, but it's only right to do it here as well. Mendrinkincoffee is the funniest Let's Play channel on YouTube. The 3, occasionally 4 hosts bounce off of each other and the games they play fantastically. They mostly tackle trash games such as Ride to Hell, Raven's Cry, and most recently, even though I wouldn't call it trash myself, Watch Dogs 2. Here's the thing. They don't get mad, their shtick isn't yelling at a game. They find ways to have fun at every turn, making fun of the game by basically not being beaten by it, by finding their own fun, by playing with it. While they tackle the games blind and stream them, the videos are also edited down very well, so they don't spend several videos tackling the same busted section of game over and over. They keep it short, funny, and without sacrificing being able to follow what the hell is going on. I'd say check it all out, but I'll try and recommend my favourites for at least a few of these channels. For the Mendrinkincoffee, it's either their very recent Watch Dogs 2 Let's Play, which I will put as the funniest thing they've ever done, and their tabletop series Mendrinkincoffee and Elixirs. Watch Dogs 2 for them trying to keep up with the sheer idiocy of the plot, their unabated hatred of the main characters, and the most satisfying take on the final mission you'll ever see, and Mendrinkincoffee and Elixirs for the suffering of no internet name Anthony, the Game Master, trying to stay on top of several murder hobos as they bumble, joke, and murder their way through his plot. Because none of them actually like tabletop games, but they're there for the ride and they make it entertaining.
Bottles make a louder noise when thrown to attract enemies, but don't do much damage as a melee weapon, only stunning the enemy. Bricks have a smaller noisemaker radius, but can kill any human or runner enemy in 3 short whacks. You can only carry one of these at once, 1 brick or 1 bottle, so even this choice has consequences.
Novacanoo produces fantastic gameplay analysis videos. He has a great eye for how a game makes use of each of its elements, and in particular, how these elements interact, how a game builds depth or wastes its individual parts by not combining them, such as the lackluster nature of the open world in Jak 2, or how the Uncharted games, particularly the earlier ones, failed to mix and match its gameplay very well, making for flat shooting and autonomous near-empty climbing segments. I think the key strength in most of his analysis videos is that he recently finished his series of reviews going through each major Naughty Dog game. That's the Crash, Jak, Uncharted series, and Last of Us. And you can see him chart how each game changes from its forebears, both in its own series and from other works. It builds this nice genealogy of each game's design, without forgetting to talk about each game's individual strengths and weaknesses. My recommendation, long as it is his analysis of the Naughty Dog library. He raises interesting points about game design in each series that I've never considered before, and I'm going to try and make note of these for future videos.
The writers just didn't really seem to care about the nature of this world. For example, your Technomancer master says that you have the courage of lions.
You showed the courage of lions beneath the dome, and for it you have been made an officer.
Why would they not use something more logical from a cultural perspective, like saying that Zachariah has the strength of a storm locust, which is this thing? Just so you understand what I'm saying, imagine if Obama gave a medal to a soldier and said, "You have proved yourself worthy of Valhalla."
Ludo Lense is not quite on the opposite end of the spectrum from Novacanoo, but his focus is much different. He produces videos primarily on RPGs with his series Focal Point, and while he does talk about gameplay, such as in Lichdom Battle Mage, he's all about world building, story, and writing, or at least that's where I believe his strength lies. how games get you invested into their world, and what you can do in them. He's got a good mind for when a game's world compromises or undermines itself. He does also view gameplay through the lens of how it can affect the plot and vice versa. I'm not really into RPGs the same way that he is, but I can tell he's got a long history and a lot of experience with them that comes through and makes me interested in hearing his take. I found him after finishing my Technomancer review and found he had recently made one himself. And while there are some overlapping ideas that we both individually came to, he picks up on finer details that I completely missed. My video recommendations for him are that Technomancer video. Tackling Z-grade sci-fi RPG tripe gives him a lot of good talking points and serves as a good introduction to what he's all about. He can tackle games by good writers just as well, but it's fun to cut back and tackle something less cohesive once in a while.
Once we've successfully traversed the harsh landscapes of Boston, we get to the jewel of the Commonwealth, glorious Diamond City. Outside we see some yuppie screaming at the intercom who explains that they've locked the main gates to prevent her from getting in, and I guess they just plan to keep them locked forever or something. Cause she only gets in when she explains to the gatekeeper that they're also keeping out all of the traitors from the city.
I've spent longer watching reviews, essays, and critiques of Fallout 4 than playing Fallout 4. Mr. Caption's 3-hour-long grave digging only further imbalanced this. He has a chronological review and critique style, breaking down a game as it goes along and introducing and talking about gameplay as the story develops. It's something I tried to do on occasion, but he does it far better, having a far greater memory for story and going very in-depth and comparing it to its contemporaries and forebears. Seeing as his biggest projects are focused on Bethesda titles and other sometimes actually good RPGs, he has a lot of different texts to smash together. His videos are critiques, and as such are generally a bit more negative than others, but his points are fair, and he will give the games credit where they're due, and go into why the games are designed the way they are. This is best shown in his multi-part Skyrim critique, where he draws the game against earlier Elder Scrolls titles and Fallout. So if you want someone to break down Bethesda, WoW, and also Overwatch to their base components, plot and background, Mr. Caption has got it covered.
And unfortunately, this brings us on to the bit where I address some of the issues I have with the game. I really think a large part of why it's so beloved is simply because there's nothing else like it. But why is it so good? Because I found it really quite difficult to find any serious analysis of the game's design or mechanics. Whenever I'd watch something where people talk about how great Red Dead Redemption is, it's nearly always just people talking about how good it looks or just listing the things you can do without any elaboration, like, you can tie a woman to the train tracks, one of the greatest games of all time. And so I genuinely think a huge part of the game's appeal is simply down to the fact that it was new.
Thinreaper produces in-depth reviews and game design essays. With a focus on popular titles in the PS3 360 era, it's a rather good ground to cover, and I can't name anyone else putting as much mind as he does to this. His selection of videos is rather limited at this point, but they're each fantastic. His in-depth review of Red Dead Redemption is rather harsh, and Red Dead is a game I adore, but I walked away more or less agreeing with him. It's made of a concern that Red Dead Redemption 2 won't be as well received on the basis that Red Dead 1 was new. Red Dead Redemption 1 was new, and thus could get away with being GTA in the Wild West and not too much more. I don't want to be reductive about his video, that's not the point he raises. It's a fantastic analysis that draws on game design trends of that time with the benefit of hindsight. I can't just say he does big stuff, however. He has a mini-series on overlooked games including Condemned, I Am Alive, where again we disagree on how good it is, and most recently Stacked.
There's only one Spider-Man.
Okay, last time we went on a trip through Nostalgiaville to see which video game makes you really feel like you can do whatever a spider can. So let's move on to Web of Shadows, shall we? I can't skip this one, can I?
No!
I can't not recommend Godzilla Mendoza, because besides how entertaining his videos are, he has done something that is very tricky. He has made me give a shit about comic book heroes. He loves superhero stuff to an infectious degree, and it shines through in his retrospective reviews on the Spider-Man titles. This retrospective is exhaustive and hilarious, drawing on each game's design and plot, backed up by his seemingly encyclopedic knowledge of the comics. It did fill in my massive gaps in knowledge between the Spider-Man movie games and the more comic-based entries. I don't want to sound clickbaity in a recommendation video, but his perspective on Spider-Man 2 is really interesting in the light of every game surrounding it, and the whole retrospective wraps up really nicely. He's also produced one of the funniest gags in any review I've seen recently. It's a pretty dumb joke that, if you've listened to my monotone, self-serious voice for too long, you'd think I wouldn't laugh at, but it killed me. I've burst into laughter the last several days when it creeps back into my mind. He has also made videos on the Wolverine game, and in the last few days a breakdown on why Arkham Knight was disappointing that doesn't just focus on the shoddy PC port, which is really unique.
Leave it for the bomb squad. Yeah, whatever. From now on, I am the bomb squad.
Nostalgia is a wonderful emotion. It encompasses what we discovered and came to love when we were kids, the stories and experiences that helped us learn who we are. Most gamers became gamers when they were young, and the games you grew up with have an indelible impact on how you appreciate this art form. But nostalgia, especially childhood nostalgia, can also diminish critique. I think it's important, as an adult, to take another look at the things that you used to love, and not just speak from the perspective of what you thought when you were 6.
If you're thinking everything else I've recommended has been far too modern, don't worry, that's what the Geek Critique is for. Wait, shit, he has 20,000 subs. Oh well, I'm not arbitrary enough. And his videos recommending other YouTubers were likely the inspiration for this video. He produces retrospective critiques on older game series primarily from the days when Sega and Nintendo were butting heads. So he's made series on Sonic, Metroid, and Donkey Kong, for example. These videos are shorter but incredibly concise and well paced. While he does cover games well generally, each review has a hook that the video is centered around. Why Sonic 1 took the world by storm like it did, Sonic 2's refinement of this formula, how it rewarded earning speed and what it meant to him, and jumping to the end of the series, how Sonic Adventure's ambition was both a blessing and a curse. He builds up through a series how the games responded to each other, their own merits, and their most outstanding differences.
Both motions use the same number of frames, but one feels like it has actual weight while the other doesn't. You see animators across all mediums use this technique all the time, because it's just what gives things weight, or allows animators to create fast motions without them seeming jerky. By exaggerating this motion, Team Ninja create an exaggerated sense of violence and weight to the weapon that Ryu uses.
Let's keep on with being concise. Turbo Button produces excellent game design essays, a lot of which have a great focus on how to make combat fun, utilising good animation, stage design, and of course depth. I put a lot of stock into combat in games, particularly Melee, and Turbo Button's videos gave me a lot to think about when making my own videos, how combat is made fair, fun, and thoughtful. Of course, he does also cover subjects such as video games and shot composition, how mechanics and story intersect, and most recently a short essay on the use of interactive set pieces and how they should be implemented, their failings and sometimes their successes.
Welcome back to Bad Reviews. Today, in recognition of the Scottish independence vote, we're going to be looking at a film that's awfully proud to be Scottish, but the Scots can hardly be proud of. Because it's awful. That was almost a wordplay. Like how Scotland was almost a country.
DStecks is perhaps the oldest channel on this list, or at least the one I've known about the absolute longest. He hasn't made a game review yet, unless I'm forgetting something, so he's the first of the two oddball entries rounding off this section. He has done a Let's Play of a Christian FPS, however, so we're still sort of there. He produces Bad Reviews, that's the series name, not a description. They are reviews on trash. While a younger me did really enjoy his old reviews on the Sonichu comics, I'm not so fond of him now. Luckily his newer stuff covering bad movies, and in a fantastic hour-long breakdown of the aims and intent of a trashy flash animation series called Jin, which is very entertaining and thoughtful, he breaks down bad films based on how enjoyably bad they are, and how to avoid their missteps. He has a 4-scale rating system. I don't usually go for arbitrary rating systems, but I like this one. It isn't a score of quality, obviously, considering the subject matter. It's more about how accessible, or spicy, a bad film is to stomach, with a low score being entertainingly bad, and a maximum rating of death requiring friends to riff with, or for you to be kinda fucked up to claw any entertainment from it.
I'm here to talk to you about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's called the Darkfall Protocol. Now, the Darkfall Protocol is a series of challenges and achievements that I've been issued over the years by people who like to see me do things and then post the results online. Now, recently, I went to one of my internships and they had quite a laugh at my expense. I was challenged to cover my entire head in grape jelly. And not only that, but to find a way to eat it all off.
My last entry in this section is the Darkfall Protocol, and now we're near entirely divorced from the original mission statement of games channels. But for the entertainment I've gotten from this channel, I'd feel bad not to talk about it. He's made a video playing Dark Souls with a blindfold, so there is that. It's a channel where Ben Fisk accepts challenges and dares from all comers, and carries them out. Aside from being a naturally entertaining bloke who can carry a video, the challenges he takes on are unique, save for when he's just making something disgusting to eat, which... why does that keep getting suggested and why does he keep taking it on? Anyway, the big part of why I enjoy the channel is why he started taking on these challenges. It's natural curiosity. He's gamified his life to make himself do varied and interesting things. It's something we could all learn from, and he suffered for it. Besides that, it's well edited and funny. Apples to Apples, The Nifty 50, and All in Name are my recommendations. The guy also somewhat recently wrote a book, so congratulations are due there. Part 2, Nepotism, a channel I work with and 2 more mates I've made along the way.
I do hate CommentaryComms.
It's because we're too close to it.
We should go far away and look at the games with binoculars. Take a few steps back. Maybe we'll get a new perspective. Broaden our horizons.
I wheeled myself back across the room. I'm at the furthest length my headphones will allow me to go.
Do you understand now, Snake?
No, I hate it just as much, but I'm further away. CommentaryComms. My review started because of Noonan, one of the co-founders of the channel, telling me to. I can't remember why he wanted me to review The Sims 3, but ever since then he's been bitching at me to review Minecraft and Sims 4. Which, yeah, I'm gonna keep disappointing him in that regard. Anyway, we've been shooting the shit over video games long since before I started making reviews. We make playthroughs of whatever the hell we want. Occasionally we make commentaries on games we don't actually want to, but we figure our lack of interest and suffering will lead to an interesting result. We make Minecraft actually somewhat entertaining, and if we can do that, we must be pretty good at what we do. My recommendation for an introduction to the channel is Day of the Zombie, where me and Noonan tried to keep each other entertained over a budget ripoff of the bloody City of the Dead game. So it's a low-budget ripoff of a low-budget trash title. We're slowly wrapping up Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and I'm recording Quantum Break, and in the coming months we will be doing a Watch Dogs 2 run, alongside the new season of Walking Dead. So if you want some entertainment and want to hear how useless I am without a script, see how bad I actually am at video games, that's the place to go.
Space Station 13 is a game that probably should have died years ago, but still manages to keep moving like a drunk semi-truck driver trying to speed away from the police with no intentions of slowing down anytime soon. The police being a metaphor for when the game dies, or when the YouTubers find it and cause another YouTube tide. Though I'm not really helping either, since the goal of this video is to make it more accessible to new people and hopefully reduce the retardation of the next tube tide.
Admiral Hippie. Hippie is a talented son of a bitch, making music, making Let's Plays, running a Space Station 13 server, and having to handle all the bullshit that comes with it. Way overdue on his tutorial of said game, but that's hardly surprising with the amount of projects he juggles. He'd be the first to say he doesn't deserve to be recommended, but it's a bit too fucking late, really. I enjoy his playthroughs, they're long format and quite laid back. He lets the game speak for itself more than most, and he's got a good ear. Doesn't feel the need to fill space just for the sake of filling space. He also ruins CommentaryComms hardcore games by being far better at the game than all of us.
Shit, that's expensive. What the fuck?
I will travel across the...
Hello, Infidel. Would you like to join
Sure,
Russia?
kid, what do you want?
Fuck yeah, baby!
Spicy Chicken God. Spicy is eclectic. He's a streamer primarily, and his aim is to make entertaining videos and get banned from edgy Russian games, both of which he has succeeded in. Okay, actually, what the fuck even is a life web? While he does do whatever takes his fancy, most of it is online fuckery and shenanigans in Space Station 13, RP bullshit like Dark RP and Altis Life. His channel is filled with highlights from these and occasional full streams, alongside the odd skit. Like I said, eclectic. He takes me back to a time when I was trying to make interesting shit happen in Dark RP and it never fucking would, but he actually found it. I put it down to him actually being able to play along better than I ever could, like the time he formed New Russia. And part 3, the big boys. Some slightly larger channels to round things off.
Okay, look. I think the best way to look at this show is, you know how some street people in cities start screaming and preaching at everyone about the end of the world or UFOs or something? They don't even care if anyone is listening or not? Well, if you think of me like that, then you shouldn't be disappointed with this show. Okay, let's get started. How much do I like this game? This is how much. This shirt has even protected me. Since when I ride the bus, sometimes old ladies like to be grumpy and stare at me since they don't approve of my existence. Well, one time that happened, I was wearing this shirt and this old lady started having a staring contest with my shirt. Like she was going to stare it down. I'm not making this up. And guess what? She lost. It's the only time I've seen one of those bus ladies flinch.
Ross's Game Dungeon is my favourite thing on YouTube, period. Ross recently qualified his stance on what Game Dungeon is, and it made everything great about his reviews kind of fall into place. He considers Game Dungeon a tour of whatever game he is covering, and he does an amazing job at it. He immerses himself into the game and, better than anyone else, can convey the game's atmosphere via his interpretation of the story, the gameplay, the graphics, and perhaps more than anyone else on this list, his love of music. He guides you through his time with a game less like a structured piece, but as a natural series of events, with his thoughts and feelings coming up naturally. His videos flow so well, they're incredibly informative and comedic. He's the only person who can get away with weird or bizarre asides, which can be a minute or two long, using the games as a launching pad to talk about other subjects he's interested in. And he's well read and interesting enough to pull this off, and he does circle it back into the game as well, so it's never a time waste. I'm also incredibly jealous of his ability to find hidden gems, games that have been forgotten about or are overlooked. I've tried to build this list on giving you a range of YouTubers with differing interests, a wide range of games. Ross manages to do this by himself, from an old Commodore game about going out and getting drunk, to a cult simulation game where he shows off that he could start his own cult if he really put his mind to it.
There were over 250 Kim Justice videos. There's videos about classic British gaming history, the likes of Ocean Software, Sir Clive Sinclair, Alan Sugar, Robert Maxwell. There's retrospective looks at classic series like Streets of Rage, Turrican, Grand Theft Auto, Sensible Soccer. There's big look backs at classic British gaming television, the likes of Games Master, Bad Influence, and Consolevania. There's an entire freaking A to Z about licensed video games.
How about some history? How about some documentaries? Let's go back even further than Geek Critique, mate. She's a gaming documentarian with a focus on video game history in England, particularly our computer scene in the 80s, and a whole lot of stuff from Generation Y. She has done reviews, such as covering the Postal series, the GTA series, and a gigantic multi-part review of Final Fantasy VII, which I have not watched yet. But from what I have watched of the Postal and GTA videos, they are good reviews, but her focus has shifted to these documentaries in recent times, and I could feel that documentary style was always creeping in when I watched those videos. They are television quality. Actually, would that be an insult nowadays? I don't watch telly. Anyway, they're even-handed, well-researched, and intricately laid out. Her series on the rise and fall of Peter Molyneux in particular is a must-watch if you have ever touched any game he's had his hands on, or if you just know him by reputation. She has a currently ongoing series on Gremlins, which I am not watching until it's finished, but I am deeply looking forward to.
Remember the days when every platform needed a platforming mascot? Nintendo had Mario, Sega had Sonic, and Sony had Crash Bandicoot. But when you think of the Xbox, Master Chief is probably the first iconic character that comes to mind. But there was a time when Microsoft tried to hop on the platforming mascot train. Blinks the Cat being the character in question. The Xbox already appealed to adults and teenagers with games like Halo, but it was time to broaden their demographic with a brand new title called Blinks the Time Sweep.
NitroRad's niche is PS1, PS2 era 3D platformers, RPG Maker games, and occasional stops off in Japanese horror. I've only found him recently and have been watching through his platformer reviews as I share this interest. NitroRad's videos are on the shorter end. Well edited, not incredibly comprehensive, but they give you everything you need. He does clearly know platformers, and due to his focus on mascot platformers, he covers character design and level design very well. covering the trends that were raised in this genre, mostly lukewarm light brawler combat. He also covers RPG Maker games such as Lisa, and the much less known Suits, a business RPG. This, like Godzilla Mendoza, is an area of games I'm only interested in thanks to the person presenting them. NitroRad is energetic, upbeat, and fast-paced. I respect YouTubers with a focus on a handful of genres. I struggle to come up with what I feel are new things to say for wildly different games, so it has to be trickier to cover a lot of games that come from a very similar design, while keeping things entertaining and unique, and NitroRad succeeds.
The first thing to understand about the original Call of Duty is that it was trying to distinguish itself among a sea of World War II shooters. It wanted to have a unique take, a unique perspective as a game. When it came out in 2003, it really did. I know it sounds weird to think of Call of Duty as wanting to be distinctive, where for the past half-decade or so it's been seen as a major contributor to derivative shooter design. In the beginning, though, it really was a calculated reaction to the very sense of irritation with a market flooded with indistinguishable shooters that you have today.
Noah Caldwell-Gervais reviews games by way of the travel writer, the history and culture of the game, and then what it is. He treats the games he plays as journeys, evaluates the good, the bad, and the why of both. They are very good videos, to put it far less pretentiously. He tends to cover whole series of games in one video, being mindful of the time each game came out, the genre it belongs to, and the culture that brought said game into being. If it's an old game, what effects it may have had. If it's newer, what it may have brought to the landscape. While I do find myself disagreeing with him here and there, his Arsehole Simulator video covering the Postal series and Hatred was perhaps a bit too vitriolic and did make a lot of bitter assumptions about the people who like Postal 2, I respect the level of thought he puts into his stance, and into each video. He treats games with far more cultural weight than most, far more than I do, and that means his perspectives on them are often quite lofty and fascinating to listen to. His retrospective on the entire Call of Duty franchise, for instance, demonstrates how the series basically 180'd on its representation of conflict, and a bit of how it happened. It's one of the most interesting videos on the story of Call of Duty you could possibly find.
Hello and welcome to Save Points, cosmic lessons I've learned about life and myself by playing video games. My name is Gold Vision, and I'd like to welcome survivalists, doomsday preppers, alien doomsday preppers, and alien utopian preppers as well. Why does everybody rule that one out? Today I'd like to share a lesson I learned while playing Ark Survival Evolved. As the name suggests, it is a survival game, but unlike the genre implies, it is actually full of everything that tries to kill you. Famine, hunger, malnutrition, inanition, atrophy, and even starvation.
Gold Vision has undertaken a journey to learn as much about existence as he can from video games. Each of his videos in his Save Point series is a well-edited, stylish, and comedic aesop, as through trial and tribulation Gold Vision walks away from each episode a better man, overloaded with another lesson on life. His 25 Games of Christmas series is a must-watch as well. It's not Christmas right now, but hey, it can be. They're a short series of skits with a jolly twist, certain to warm even a cold, dead heart. Or at least make you laugh, and really that's all you need. He's also undertaken the gargantuan effort of trying to pacifist run GTA Online, saving up money for a yacht as the far too friendly Francisco, who becomes more than an avatar over the course of the series, standing against the harsh injustice of GTA Online and never letting it break his spirit. His uploads are infrequent but always golden. Wait, shit.
Yakuza is an awesome series of over-the-top beat-em-ups by Sega that unfortunately never got that much recognition here in the West, causing Sega to almost completely give up on localizing them. The series started back in 2005 on the PlayStation 2 and has since had a new entry released every year or so, totaling 5 main games, 3 spin-offs that switch up the conventional gameplay and setting of the series, 2 PSP games based on a completely different character, and an HD collection that greatly improves the first 2 games. I have a lot to say about these games individually and could probably do an entire video on each of them, but for now I'm just gonna limit this to a brief overview of the whole series.
Let's close off with one more channel built on shorter videos and essays of sorts. HyperBitHero has several ongoing series, each with a different focus. Devious Intent covers the motivations of video game villains and how they're made imposing, from Solid as Snake to Virgil. Your Next Favourite shines a spotlight on underrated titles. He made a fantastic episode on the Yakuza franchise, for instance, and more recently the Gravity Rush series, which I have been meaning to pick up. Oh, and of course he covered Binary Domain, which deserves any love that it gets. Non-video game related, but he also did one on the anime Kaiji Ultimate Survivor, which is a sign of fantastic taste. Another series is Lost in Concept, exploring early or lost design ideas in games and the effect losing these elements had. Small things like the supernatural subplot in Heavy Rain, or perhaps the complete redesign of Fuse. His videos are always quick and informative, packing a good deal of information in a short span of time. This is of course alongside general game design videos and occasional other videos on whatever subject he finds interesting. HyperBitHero's primary focus is on Japanese console releases. While he does have several videos on Western games, that is where most of his focus lies. This is of course not all the channels I follow. Honourable mentions are due for Matthew Mitosis, Joseph Anderson, particularly his Inside Joke video, Mr. B-Tongue, Slow Beef, Chip and Ironicus, Reynold Sanity, and the best channel to ever exist, Fitz Fisselwitz. Rest in peace. Links to every channel mentioned will be in the description. Like I said, I wanted to give a good spread and avoid sounding too repetitive. Each of these channels have their own merits and I hope they came through. If you have any recommendations, channels you want to talk about, please do so in the comments, or if you have the time and capacity, make your own video. It's definitely hard to get noticed on YouTube nowadays, and while I'm too small to really make a difference for anyone I've just talked about, hopefully they'll give you some entertainment and get the ball rolling in some way. If I ever have another 18 or so channels to talk about, I could do a follow-up vid. I also recently opened up a VidMe account as a sort of backup, and if you're watching this on VidMe first, some of these suggestions might work someday, but likely not now. Many thanks to my patrons, Eric Nace, Wagman, DBZ King 119, Noonam, Sigurd, Human Waste, Damascus, and Armin Reddy. Those in the $5 bracket, please leave questions either here or on Patreon for the Afterthought video, any questions raised by the video, and I'll try to follow up on them. The next review is on the indie PC platformer Cloud Built, which, just today, a teaser for the sequel went up. This game kicked my ass, but did I enjoy it?